It's so damn unprofessional. It's not even funny. You mean to tell me that you guys had fans paying for these like meet and greets or whatever it was, and you guys, some of y'all no-showed, just flat out no-showed. Some of y'all had the fans waiting in hours because you were coming hours and hours late because y'all was out with the stud buds getting drunk all night.
To go the extra mile. They don't even think they need to show up on time for fan meet and greet and autograph sessions, pretty much spitting in fans' faces. Fans who traveled maybe across the country to get that opportunity. Fans who maybe saved month after month after month after month to get enough money to buy a plane ticket, save enough money to get a train ticket, to get all-star tickets, to get a hotel, to get an opportunity to meet and greet some of their favorite players. There was one player that showed up to these meet and greets on time. There was one player that wasn't out the night before grinding in the club. There was one player that actually does go above and beyond. There's one player that actually does put in the extra work. There's actually one player that clearly doesn't feel entitled to the fans she has. She understands she needs to work for those fans that she has. She needs to.
The WNBA is an absolute, catastrophic meltdown, collapsing under the weight of a scandal so repulsive, so deeply humiliating, that it threatens to tear the entire league apart at its very seams. What was supposed to be a grand celebration of women's basketball, a glittering, star-studded showcase designed to reward the most devoted fans in sports history, instantly mutated into an unspeakable nightmare of toxic entitlement, vicious greed, and jaw-dropping disrespect. Thousands of heartbroken families, starry-eyed kids who saved up every single penny for months, and die-hard supporters traveled thousands of miles across the country, spending their hard-earned life savings, only to be brutally spat on by the very superstar athletes they worshipped. While the league's highest-paid veterans and loudest icons were out getting plastered, stumbling out of late-night clubs hungover, and completely skipping mandatory appearances, the entire billion-dollar corporate narrative disintegrated into total chaos. But through the thick, suffocating cloud of arrogance, greed, and shameless apathy, one lone superstar stood tall. One generational phenom refused to turn her back on the people. And when the truth behind this terrifying locker room betrayal finally leaked out, it sparked an explosive war that changed the WNBA forever. To truly grasp the catastrophic weight of this catastrophic breakdown, you have to understand the deep, festering wounds that have been tearing the WNBA apart behind closed doors for months. For years, the league's established veterans operated in a comfortable, quiet bubble, demanding higher salaries, massive corporate sponsorships, and mainstream media respect while performing in front of half-empty arenas. Then, like a sudden lightning bolt, Caitlin Clark arrived. In a matter of weeks, she completely shattered every television viewership record, sold out massive NBA-sized arenas across North America, and dragged a struggling women's league directly into the global spotlight. Millions of dollars poured into team coffers, media rights exploded, and suddenly, veteran superstars who had spent a decade in relative obscurity were getting the massive paychecks and global exposure they had always dreamed of. But instead of celebrating this historic, golden era, a dark, toxic envy began poisoning the inner sanctuaries of the league. Whispers turned into furious shouting matches in dark arena tunnels. Resentment festered among the league's elite stars, who felt insulted that a rookie was receiving all the love, all the national commercials, and all the fan adoration. Behind the scenes, prominent players and powerful league executives felt Clark hadn't earned her stripes or paid her dues in the trenches of the league. They watched with burning jealousy as entire families bought jerseys with number 22, ignoring the established icons who believed they built this league from the ground up. As All-Star Weekend in Chicago approached, league officials promised the public the most historic fan event in women's sports history. They marketed high-end ticket packages, exclusive VIP meet and greets, and once-in-a-lifetime photo opportunities. Working-class families drained their savings accounts, dropping upwards of $3,000 on flights, inflated Chicago hotel rooms, and exorbitant all-star tickets just to give their young children a single second with their heroes. The league promised unprecedented access, claiming this weekend would prove that WNBA athletes were the most accessible, ground-earth, and grateful stars in professional sports. What those innocent fans didn't know was that behind the scenes, a dark, coordinated Cold War was reaching its boiling point. Inside luxurious hotel suites, secret group chats were buzzing with bitter resentment. A faction of prominent veteran players was growing increasingly hostile about the demanding all-star schedule and the overwhelming presence of Clark's massive fan base. While the corporate executives made grand promises to the public, a quiet rebellion was breeding among the players. They didn't see the fans as the heartbeat of their sport. They saw them as an exhausting, annoying chore that was getting in the way of their legendary late-night partying. The stage was set for an unprecedented disaster, and as the Friday morning meet and greets approached, the boiling tension was about to explode into a public nightmare that no corporate PR firm could ever spin. When Friday morning arrived at WNBA Live in downtown Chicago, the atmosphere inside the convention hall turned toxic fast. Thousands of young fans stood in lines stretching across the entire building, clutching expensive tickets, waiting for signatures from their favorite stars. But as hours ticked by, the tables remained totally empty. The league's most famous names were completely nowhere to be found. Unbeknownst to the devastated families waiting in line, those very superstars were sleeping off wild, late-night benders, having stumbled back to their hotels at sunrise after partying endlessly in local nightclubs. When a handful of players finally dragged themselves in, hungover, visibly miserable, and over 40 minutes late, they signed autographs without making eye contact for 10 brief minutes before walking straight out, leaving crying children and furious parents behind. Sponsor booths turned into war zones as security guards began arbitrarily canceling photo ops without explanation, turning away families who had paid thousands of dollars. Panicked league executives scrambled through backstage hallways, frantically begging players to leave their hotel suites and fulfill their contractual duties. But the bitter stars flatly refused, claiming they were exhausted and didn't owe anyone their time. They treated the paying public like an insufferable inconvenience. In an instant, the WNBA's carefully crafted image of fan-first accessibility disintegrated into total corporate fraud, creating a scene of unprecedented disrespect that horrified arena staff. Then, right as the entire event was spiraling into complete disaster, the first shocking twist exploded through the arena. Word began racing through the furious crowd that one table in the entire building was running smoothly, on time, and with unbelievable energy. While the rest of the league's stars actively sabotaged their appearances, Caitlin Clark appeared, not just on time, but early. Defying her own protective security detail, Clark refused to leave her table. While other stars hid away in total entitlement, Clark began hugging crying fans, taking photos with every single person in line, and handing out signed gear to young kids who had been turned away by hungover veterans. Her camp had secretly coordinated with top Nike officials to pull off something unheard of in WNBA history. She launched a massive, citywide scavenger hunt, hiding pairs of her unreleased signature sneakers across Chicago, completely turning the weekend into an interactive fan miracle. But as videos of Clark's generosity went viral across social media, it triggered a terrifying, explosive reaction in the players' lounge backstage. Jealous veterans were not touched by Clark's kindness. They were utterly consumed by rage. A prominent group of stars cornered Clark behind closed doors, screaming at her for making them look bad and accusing her of being a corporate scab who was destroying player solidarity. They openly demanded she stop doing extra fan events immediately, issuing a chilling threat that if she didn't fall in line, she would face terrifying retaliation during the actual All-Star game. The chilling backstage confrontation sent shockwaves through Clark's inner circle, but if the jealous veterans thought their mob-style threats would silence her, they severely underestimated the generational phenom. Instead of retreating, Clark doubled down on her unwavering loyalty to the fans. She personally instructed her management team to open up even more time slots for unpaid, surprise appearances, determined to give every heartbroken kid in Chicago the moment they had been denied by the rest of the league. While her peers sneered from the shadows, Clark was out on the streets, turning downtown Chicago into a sanctuary of hope and genuine appreciation for the people who actually fund the sport. When Sunday's flagship All-Star game finally tipped off inside a packed United Center of 19,000 fans, the toxic locker room feud exploded directly onto the hardwood. The game instantly descended into a disgraceful, unwatchable mockery of professional sports. Hungover, checked out, and brimming with malice, key veteran stars flatly refused to run plays, shooting intentional air balls, missing wide-open layups, and walking casually back on defense. It was a deliberate, passive-aggressive strike designed to embarrass the league and ruin the broadcast. During a live sideline interview, a disgusted Clark openly pleaded into the camera, begging her teammates to just play real basketball for the fans who spent thousands to be there, but her pleas fell on deaf, hostile ears. Then, right as the humiliating game reached its frantic conclusion, the second major twist detonated, leaving the sports world completely paralyzed. Outraged arena technicians, disgusted by the blatant disrespect they had witnessed all weekend, leaked a series of secret, unedited backstage audio recordings directly to major media outlets. The candid, damning audio captured high-profile veterans in the tunnels explicitly bragging about deliberately no-showing fan events to get drunk, openly laughing about heartbroken kids crying in line, and discussing a coordinated plan to freeze Clark out on the court to humiliate her on national television. The exposure of this sickening conspiracy instantly shattered the league's corporate shield. Within minutes, live broadcast chat rooms exploded with nuclear rage, and corporate sponsors began frantically contacting league headquarters, threatening to pull tens of millions of dollars in active marketing deals. Panicked WNBA executives found themselves trapped in an unprecedented crisis as the raw, unedited audio went viral across every social media platform on Earth. What was supposed to be a glorious showcase of athletic excellence had turned into the most explosive, career-ending scandal in the history of American professional sports, exposing a deep-seated culture of corruption and entitlement that went straight to the very top of the league. The fallout from the leaked audio was swift, catastrophic, and completely brutal. Within hours, the sports world erupted into an unprecedented wave of furious public outrage. Viral videos of crying children outside WNBA Live were contrasted directly against leaked footage of hungover veterans stumbling through hotel lobbies, creating a wave of anger that completely consumed the league's reputation. Furious fans flooded social media platforms with the hashtag #OnlyCaitlinCared, demanding full refunds for their $3,000 weekend packages and calling for the immediate suspension of every single player involved in the meet and greet boycott. Major corporate sponsors, terrified of being tied to such a toxic display of entitlement, immediately began freezing their multi-million-dollar marketing deals. Boardrooms at major athletic brands and corporate partners descended into utter panic as executives realized that supporting the league's veteran core had become a public relations hazard. High-profile media commentators and national sports analysts tore into the league on live television, openly declaring that the WNBA had morphed from a professional sports league into an entitled, self-sabotaging sorority that actively loathed its own fan base. Inside the locker rooms, the atmosphere turned radioactive. The bitter veterans who had plotted against Clark suddenly found themselves under a terrifying public spotlight. Sponsors were dropping them, fans were booing them incessantly, and their social media comment sections were overwhelmed by millions of angry supporters. Yet, instead of showing remorse or apologizing to the families they had hurt, the jealous core doubled down on their toxicity. Furious players openly blamed Clark for the leaks, accusing her of destroying the league's image and using her massive fan base to wage a media war against them. The emotional toll on Clark was immense. Caught in the center of an explosive, league-wide war she never asked for, she was forced to navigate the intense isolation of being completely ostracized by her own peers. Backstage personnel reported seeing Clark visibly shaken, exhausted by the relentless locker room hostility and the unbelievable pressure of carrying an entire league's credibility on her shoulders. Yet, despite the immense psychological warfare and nonstop threats, Clark refused to hide behind PR statements. While her hostile teammates cowered from reporters and turned off their comments, Clark stepped up to the microphones, taking full accountability for the game's poor quality, defending the heartbroken fans, and calling for real professional accountability across the entire league. Her bravery only cemented her status as the undisputed face of the sport, but behind closed doors, the league's powerful establishment was quietly preparing an aggressive, desperate counterstrike to protect their failing reputations at all costs. As the public backlash threatened to incinerate the league's upcoming broadcast deals, top WNBA executives held an emergency, closed-door summit at league headquarters in New York. Trapped between angry corporate sponsors pulling their funding and furious veteran players demanding protection, the league made a desperate, breathtaking choice. Rather than punishing the hungover stars who had sabotaged the fan events, powerful league officials decided to execute a massive, coordinated cover-up to shift the entire narrative away from player entitlement. Leaked internal memos revealed that league PR executives were actively strategizing behind the scenes to quiet the scandal by leaking false stories to friendly media outlets, claiming the fan outrage was artificially manufactured by toxic online trolls rather than genuine, heartbroken supporters. Even worse, high-level officials began quietly drafting new, restrictive media rules designed specifically to muzzle Caitlin Clark, restricting her unapproved fan interactions and prohibiting her from hosting independent, off-site events like her wildly successful sneaker hunt under the guise of player safety and security concerns. They believed that by restricting Clark's extraordinary fan access and forcing her into line, they could level the playing field and save the fragile egos of their veteran stars. But right as this corporate gag order was about to be officially enforced, the final, terrifying twist exploded directly in their faces. A high-ranking league whistleblower, horrified by the executive board's blatant attempt to censor Clark and punish her for showing basic human decency, secretly leaked a trove of private emails, text threads, and recorded phone calls straight to federal sports regulators and major investigative journalists. The leaked documents delivered a nuclear bombshell. Senior league executives had not only known about the players' late-night partying ahead of time, but they had actively helped cover up missed sponsor appearances for years while continuing to sell non-refundable, multi-thousand-dollar VIP ticket packages to unsuspecting working-class families. The revelation transformed a simple sports scandal into a massive, multi-million-dollar federal consumer fraud investigation. Now, the entire WNBA hierarchy finds itself standing on the absolute precipice of complete legal and financial destruction. Major corporate sponsors are threatening a complete nuclear exit, federal authorities are knocking on the league's front door, and a terrifying, deep-seated locker room civil war threatens to turn next season into an unprecedented bloodbath. With the league's corrupt leadership desperately trying to silence her, and her bitter, vengeful peers preparing for an all-out war on the court, will Caitlin Clark be forced to stand completely alone against the very institution she saved? Or will this explosive federal investigation burn the toxic establishment to the ground once and for all? This is an absolute, unbelievable betrayal of the highest order, exposing the dark, toxic underbelly of a league at war with its own supporters. Did Caitlin Clark single-handedly save the entire weekend from complete embarrassment? Or are the jealous veterans right in claiming she broke locker room solidarity? Is the WNBA hierarchy corrupt beyond repair, or can the league survive this terrifying federal fraud investigation? We need to hear your voice right now. Drop a comment below and tell us who you stand with. Don't forget to smash that like button, hit subscribe, and turn on all notifications so you never miss a single second of this explosive, unfolding sports civil war.